be in danger now.
Ruby and I are freedivers and environmentalists. We are setting out on a road trip up the coast of Scotland, looking for wildlife, adventure, and the interesting new projects that create jobs whilst improving the environment. We have heard that the factory farming of salmon is an increasing threat to life on the coast. We want to find out for ourselves how bad the situation actually is and what solutions are out there. What are the main concerns around salmon farms?
They're polluting. They use open nets, so anything that's released in the net escapes. So the waste from the fish, the excrement, they excrete a lot as dissolved nutrients as well. And they're subject to parasites and disease. And so the disease vectors and the parasites, the sea lice, escape through the open nets as well. So if you cluster a lot of animals together like that, you're going to produce a lot of sea lice potentially. The treatments are quite extreme. The chemical treatments, pesticides, and there are also physical treatments which are quite cruel and kill a lot of fish. There are 200-ish active salmon farms. The industry wants to double in value, which is effectively size, by 2030. So the problem with the expansion really is that it's going to double the amount of pollution and double the amount of sea lice unless there's some really drastic action taken.
David Attenborough recently warned wild salmon could be pushed to extinction by the escaped lice that plague factory-farmed salmon. These lice escape from the cages and latch onto the wild salmon as they swim past, slowly killing them. Don Staniford, director of Scottish Salmon Watch, is the perfect person to take us out for a closer look.
When we're in a supermarket and we pick up salmon, it looks fresh and healthy and from the clean lochs of Scotland, but the real story is different. Can you tell us what's going on behind us?
These are cleaner fish being put in the cages. These are kind of like lump suckers, wrasse that eat the parasites off the salmon. And then over there, that's a fish carrier that's getting smolts from a hatchery. And you can see the factory operation, a £40 million hatchery opened by the Scottish government.
Surprisingly, salmon factory farms are really close to the beaches. We're heading out to take a closer look. We'll have to be quick. Apparently these operations do not appreciate visitors. Wow, well, it's really intense being here, having heard so much about the problems with salmon factory farming, and we can see the salmon desperately jumping out the water. Don, what's going on behind us?
They're crammed at high stocking densities. In the wild would migrate thousands of miles, but here it's crammed in a cage. And so this is modern intensive factory farming. We know from the data that 20 to 25% of these fish are dying in the cages every year. So they're dying through parasites eating away at the head, they're dying through infectious diseases, they're dying through welfare abuse, they're dying through these torture devices called the thermolice and the optolice and the hydrolice. So these are washing machines for farmed salmon. This is welfare abuse. This should not be tolerated. The public should boycott Scottish salmon.
So there's a lot of waste coming out of each of these cages.
Yeah, there's no sewage treatment. They're discharging wastes, which can be chemical waste, it could be infectious diseases, pathogens, viruses, and it's going in to affect the water quality. There'll be a public outrage if any other industry was having the same levels of mortality and was also discharging waste untreated into the open ocean.
I think I'm going to go in and take a look.
Feeling a little bit nervous, but ready to do it.
Why are you doing this?
I'm doing it because I've just heard so much about salmon farms and the harm they're causing to the natural world, and I'd like to see for myself what actually it looks like, these cages up close, and what's happening underneath them.
Last time we were out, they tried to ram the two guys in the dinghy. They tried to capsize them. Matt! They're coming!
Where is he?
We're getting too close. Come on. He's going to be in danger now.
amazing. What was it like?
Really grim. It made me feel really sad. There's a lot of animals in there and they're obviously in distress, and you can sort of feel their pain. Like it's a grim, horrible place.
I want to know if there are ways of farming that are better for the environment and create jobs. We've come to Loch to meet with sea wilding coordinator Danny Renton and learn about an oyster bed regeneration project that they're working on.
100 years ago, oysters were the food of the poor and were everywhere. As a result of human predation, disease and pollution, oysters have almost completely died out. So they're commercially extinct in virtually all areas. And in lochs like this, you can see native oyster shells lying around the shoreline, but there are very few left. There's only a couple of hundred to the best of our knowledge. So the purpose of what we're trying to do now is to reintroduce native oysters to the loch, because with them come a lot of biodiversity. Where you get native oysters, you get many other species associated with them. You get fish nurseries, fish spawning grounds, and we're hoping that if we can restore the native oyster beds in the loch here, we can restore the general marine health to the area.
And is this the sort of project that can be replicated in many lochs around the northwest?
Well, that's the idea. That's what we're trying to do. It's a community-driven project. The plan is to put 1 million oysters back into the water over a 5-year period. And if we can show that it works, then we'd like to roll it out to other places.
I'm really looking forward to meeting Sarah. She's a filmmaker and activist working to protect the Scottish coast. She sees a whole ecosystem of community groups emerging to create new marine protected areas as the key to a more sustainable future.
My feeling is that actually I think it's a root and branch attitude change, and that comes from a real cultural rethink about our relationship to nature, who we are, and the way our culture has looked at nature as separate and there to be exploited for our benefit. We are part of the web. Damaging the environment is actually damaging ourselves. And it's as simple as that. I mean, if we can get an understanding also of the sentience of these creatures, they are incredibly sensitive and intelligent and able to feel pain. As soon as we start thinking of sustainable alternatives, the imagination will start to actually focus.
Yeah, it's so true.
I have been put in touch with Johnny Witteridge, a friend of a friend who has lived locally his whole life. Here's a fun way for us to explore the seabed and try out our freediving skills. We will be going down to about 10 metres, and if we get it right, we may even get some dinner.
Johnny, our main man, is an expert scallop catcher. Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to know what they look like on the seabed and how you scoop them up.
Freediving is about relaxing in the water and feeling really calm. Even if you get nervous or scared, just letting that go.
Ideal scalloping. You flip along the surface and you try and see them on the bottom, and when you've located them, you take a breath and you go down, you gather as many as you can, and you come up and you put them in your find bag.
Look at these incredible scallops. Look at that. Bounty from the sea.
Yum!
This is an incredibly selective and careful way of getting a scallop, because we're just going down and just pulling the scallops up, so the whole rest of the seabed remains intact. It's so beautiful here. The lochs are beautiful. There are all these marine mammals and beautiful wildlife, and I just can't understand how a corporation can come along and stick these cages down and take over beaches and build these things which torment animals. For me, it just feels really wrong. I think factory farming is wrong. I don't think we should do it on land. I don't think we should do it in the sea. And I'm amazed that the Scottish Government isn't doing anything about it.
It's just maddening that it's really marketed as this health food, ecological, sustainable, healthy option. And being here in the beauty of the northwest coast of Scotland, you really see that in stark contrast, and how much this landscape and this ecosystems need to be protected. like whether it's the marine mammals or the mell beds or the oysters and the shellfish, or all those other predators that are reliant, like the otters, and you really see how it's all interlinked, and the salmon farms really affect every other aspect of that web.
Everything we buy has some kind of impact, all the food we buy. Salmon, farmed salmon, seems like quite a benign thing, and actually I would just say pay a bit more attention to it and find out what's involved in farming it and whether it has to be that way. And if you don't agree with the way it's done, stop buying it until it's done differently. And tell the supermarkets, tell the people who are selling you the fish that you don't think it's sustainably sourced like they say it is. They all say it is. If you don't agree, point it out to them. And then the companies will make it more sustainable. They'll have to. It's like all food, we need to be better informed about what we're eating and what the production processes are.
Johnny, how do you recommend we cook these?
I think we just take them out, get a bit of vermouth, and we fry them up very quickly on both sides. A bit of salt, delicious.
It has been amazing coming on this adventure to the wild west coast of Scotland. So many people we spoke to are optimistic for the future and see immense potential to create jobs on the coast, doing things like regenerating oyster beds, sustainable fishing and wildlife tourism. It feels very wrong that this special part of the world and these new green shoots are all under threat from the factory farming of salmon, but we can't help wondering, is there not more meaningful work creating a sustainable world in which humans can thrive and wildlife can also flourish? Johnny, thank you so much for today. Thanks for taking us out. It was so cool getting these scallops. I don't think you can get a better eating experience than this, really. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. Good health.
Live long and prosper.
Wait, what did they say in Scotland?
Slange.
Slange.